Hello class, I wanted to take just a minute and go through a successful researched argument example so that you can see what a good essay looks like and model yours accordingly. Okay, so this essay is about video games in the classroom, and you can see it's formatted correctly, no title page, no abstract because those are APA. You have a heading, you have the headers, and then you have a title written in the same format as the essay. So our writer starts out by talking about Minecraft and the benefit and interest in Minecraft, and sort of the two opinions of how video games impact students. So you have, this sort of idea that Minecraft helps students, and then he presents this opposing idea about how Minecraft is the gimmick. So he's sort of setting up the tension in the topic, so where the two sides of the issue lie. And then here comes the author's thesis. Notice how short this introduction was. I think you should get to your thesis either at the bottom of the first page or the very top of the second page. So you don't want your introduction to go on too long. So the first thing that the writer does is they introduce the issue question. Such diametrically opposed opinions leave parents and educators to wonder whether video games aid or detract from learning in the classroom. So that's the author's issue question. Then here's the author's main claim. So their argument for their essay. Some educators are loath to use video and computer games in the classroom, fearing that such games will shorten attention spans or worrying that gameplay will not mesh well with existing pedagogical practice. I can never say that word. So this is a really good sort of introduction of the opposing view, and then here's his view. While research confirms that excessive video game exposure correlates with attention problems in children and adolescents, and even advocates of gaming and education acknowledge that significant barriers to widespread adoption of video games as a part of the school curriculum must be addressed. Nevertheless, lessons crafted around appropriate video game content can harness the kind of tenacious, self-motivated, collaborative learning that needed to excel in adult life. So clearly an argument, right? That's the focus of this essay, is that you're making an argument. And our writer here is absolutely saying that video games have a place in the classroom. So it's clear by the end of the introduction what the issue question is and what the argument is. This is the claim. So you want yours to be just as clear. Then the author gives us a little background, 2 paragraphs of video game use. They use 2 sources. You notice that the writer quotes or paraphrases the source a couple times, and that's okay. They are only using 2 sources of reference in their background, which is what the assignment sheet says. A couple mistakes in citation, like having these 2 periods here, but that's a small detail because the content is strong. So there's an introduction for about 2 full paragraphs, so a little over a page of background information about video games and what's been discussed by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and sort of the history of video games. Then our writer starts by introducing the opposing view and then contending it and refuting it. So the first one, parents and educators who are aware of the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendation that children's total media time be limited to no more than 2 hours per day may be reluctant to accept the use of video games in the classroom. So that's sort of the first opposing view that the writer is going to contend with. And he does that by a source. And look how effectively he introduces this source. Just like you did in your summary, he introduces the what the source is, the title, the authors. So it's a good introduction of the source, and then talks about how this source, really talks about how that some people say that this is true, that video games are associated with greater attention problems and things that this opposing view would believe. So this source sort of supports the opposing view. And then our writer contends against it. So such concerns are primarily focused on unsupervised play, where video game content is action-packed. And then he continues on for another paragraph and talks about how undirected, unlimited video use, so it's connected to, it's still part of this refutation of the first opposing view, put them at risk. Instructors instead provide appropriate guidance and gamed content. So his contention, after he introduces the opposing view, here's his argument against it, and his argumentation, his argumentative writing. And you can see here that he has two sources. Now, he lost a couple points because he used more than two sources in one point, and the essay says not to do that. So be careful. The one drawback to this essay is that it does use a lot of source material where it should have probably used just a little bit less, but that was minor to the fact that there was still a lot of good argumentation. So, I mean, you can see down here a really good example, using Les Mis as an example of the argumentation there as well. So, introduction of opposing view in a paragraph, refutation and contention against the opposing view, remaining argumentative, and using a source to support his argument as well. Then he gets to his second opposing view. Another fear inhibiting educators' and parents' acceptance of video games in the classroom is the prospect of gaming addiction. So that's something that people would be concerned about. And again, he gives some credibility to that opposing view with the source and explains that just a little bit. And then here's his contention again in a new paragraph. Although unrestricted video game consumption may result in addiction by vulnerable players, the game elements that feed such addiction will not be present in the classroom. So he's contending against that. Again, a little bit of over source use here. He often gives the source with paraphrase, and that's okay. I mean, it's not okay. I'd like you to try and avoid that, but in terms of the whole essay, it didn't hurt his score too much because he had a lot of really good argumentation of his own voice throughout. And you can see that here. So there's his contention against that point. Here's his third opposing view. Although computer games have great potential to motivate students who are not successful in traditional school environments, classroom culture will need to change before inclusion of video games in the classroom will improve learning. So, and then this one is just one paragraph. So then there's the two source references there for this contention and this argument here. Then he has another opposing view. While that is true that traditional classroom pedagogy may not mesh well with video games as learning tools, schools can and should adapt themselves to the type of learning that the best video games exemplify. So this is starting to argue the your view section. So he's still kind of acknowledging an argument against video games in the classroom, but starting to move towards the your view. So you can see that he has another source here and a little bit of discussion about institutional changes and just as teachers currently supplement classroom learning with other educational activities, video games can do the same thing. Here's another your view. Sometimes even teachers familiar with and accepting commercial use of video games may not believe video games can help in the classroom. So another sort of argument that maybe teachers don't know what they're doing, and so they can find themselves like not willing to use video games because they don't know, and so he kind of argues that. This paragraph again was pretty heavy on the source use, but he then continues the discussion of this point here in another paragraph about how there's lots of video game use successful examples. And again, lots of source use. You can only do 2 source references per reason, and so he lost some points for overusing the sources, but other than that, the argumentation was strong. Here is another your view. So his own opinion: there's a growing body of evidence suggesting that video games induce an optimal state of concentration and productivity. That was his argument, and he develops that further here in a paragraph. So that was one of his, again, ideas or your views, and this one worked because it just had 2 references, just like it's supposed to. And then another your view. Video games can help keep students on task and improve cognitive skills. Oversourcing a little bit here, just a little too much, needed more of his voice and his argumentation through here. And then his conclusion was only about a paragraph. And then here is his works cited, and you can see that he has all of his 10 to 12 sources listed, even though maybe not every single one was used in the essay. So hopefully that helps you see a successful example and the kinds of argumentative writing that you are looking to do for this essay. Let me know if you have any questions.